Thank you, Iris. Our next reader is going to be Demise Spencer. And of late, her poetry in short prose has been focused on wisdom she has gained through the years and honing of life's purpose. She's sharing one example this evening. Welcome, Demise. Yay.
Okay, this is a short poem, and yet it describes my whole life from birth to the end. And it might be difficult because, of course, my life starts with my parents. My mother is not well. She's in a nursing home in Michigan, and I just learned today she's got influenza and is not doing very well. And so I'm a little concerned. But this will give you the concept that she was a great mom. She is a great mom, and I have a great daughter. And life, even if short, has many beautiful pieces. So this is called "Understand the Assignment." Be ejected from the soft place. Absorb love. Grow confidence, gather values, skills, friends, and lovers. Play hard, work hard, love hard, fall hard, become hard, then discard hard. Remember the soft place. Teach the young ones, reach the young ones, be there as long as they need. Play by the rules, use all the tools, fish where the fish are, plan for your memoir. Connect the dots and be grateful. Do all the good you can for as long as you can. Refuse to wear out. But when you do, pass the baton.
I think we all need a copy of that, Denise. That was fabulous. Thank you so much. Our next reader, Eric Johnson, our fearless IWN moderator, is fulfilling his grandmother's dream that someone in the family return to South Carolina.
Okay. Thank you, Kai. Whoops. All right. Before I get started, I just want to say hi to Bill Newby, our IWN godfather, who's here with us tonight. Welcome home, sort of, Bill. Okay. This is a true story, except for the parts that I made up. Bobby Strange's brothers had set up a gym in their basement with a heavy punching bag that hung from the ceiling. His cellar was crammed with guys sparring and jumping rope, while others slammed the big canvas set and tagged the speed bag with the rapidity of a woodpecker. Bobby and I sat for hours, listening to the thumps and grunts of guys practicing the sweet science. If we kept the jugs filled with cold water, they would let us slip into boxing gloves and throw left jabs and right crosses at each other. The place had the foul aroma of sweat, but the longer you hung around, the less you cared. It was boy nirvana until Bobby's oldest brother snatched us back to reality with, "Ain't you supposed to be home by now?" I hadn't thought about it, but he was probably right. My family had moved from my own neighborhood filled with boys like Bobby Strange and his pugilistic family. We returned regularly to visit my grandparents, which gave me a chance to hang with my pals and for my old man to visit his favorite tap room where he led complicated discussions about Vietnam, Russia, and Mississippi. My mother was less nostalgic. She believed that nighttime was the realm of murderous street gangs whose only goal was to hunt down her kids. She expected us to return to her mother's house before the streetlights shone. If not, she would show up at the bar and force Pop to scour the neighborhood in search of her children, who were surely being dismembered by whatever gang was out that night. On my way to my grandmother's house, profoundly late and unashamed, I saw her standing outside the bar giving Pop an earful. I decided to play it cool, like it had been prearranged for us to meet outside the cozy bar. My mother made pirate noises whenever we did something so egregious that she didn't have words to describe what was about to happen to us. Arg, arg, she sputtered while pointing at me. I quickly concocted a reckless lie. Wow, shaking my head in mock relief. Am I glad to see you two? You remember Boodles? He caught me going through the alley and said he was gonna kick my butt if I didn't give him a quarter. But I got loose and well, here I am. I offered up Boodles because he was a former neighbor who my mother couldn't stand. Years ago, Boo asked me if he could see our Brownie Hawkeye. I handed in the boxy camera and he opened it, exposing the only 12 photos of my brother's college graduation. My mother never forgave him. You gotta do something about this, Demise, she said. Let's go over there right now and tell his mother, I'm not having this. Oh, now neat, groaned Pop, who hadn't taken his eyes off me while I was spewing my lie. Boo wouldn't mess with Ricky. The boy was just late. No, replied my mother. That's what I mean. You're always defending these hoodlums, and Boodles is not a hoodlum, interrupted Pop. I wrapped my arms around my mother's waist and whispered into her stomach, I'm tired, Mommy. Can't we just go home? Oh, okay, baby, she said while glaring at my old man. Let's go, Dennis. Don't even think about turning on that radio. We're going to talk about this. Yes, I thought. Pop scanned the dim horizon like a sailor looking for dry land. In the distance, I saw a shadowy form lurching toward us in the guerrilla stroll employed by tough guys in the neighborhood. What the? Nah, couldn't be. No way. Boodles! Yo, Boo! Shouted Pop. Come on, really? Boodles strolled up to my folks and greeted them. Hey, Mr. Johnson, Mrs. Johnson, Ricky. My mother hissed in response. Look, Boo, began my father. Ricky said you were messing with him tonight. Boodles looked at me like I had sprouted two heads, each sporting a forked tongue. Accustomed to fending off accusations, he smirked and said, Ricky, was I messing with you? I squeaked out a weak, no. Pop laughed and lightly squeezed the top of my head. How things going, Boo? Your folks all right? Tell them I asked. Sure, Mr. Johnson. Later, Boo. My mother, stung by defeat, was silent during our return trip. I sat in the back, stewing in humiliation, whimpering occasionally. Pop drove home with a satisfied smile as he sang along with a blues tune playing on the radio. I'm going to Chicago. Sorry, but I can't take you.
Thank you, Eric. And now we have a new reader, Holly Hicks, and she is a retired literacy teacher and writing coach. In 2005, she co-authored an article titled Weaving Reading and Writing into the Curriculum in Reading Matters. for the Journal of South Carolina State Council of the International Reading Association. In 2010, she self-published a novella, Ella's Birthday Wish. One of her main passions as a writer is to share her poems with others. She finds writing is her way of staying grounded in reality and connecting with others. So please welcome Holly Hicks. Okay, I can't see.
Do that? Is that okay like that?
I think so. Well, I can't see the thing.
Okay. You need to, if you can glance off to that.
Okay.
But
Now I
keep-
can.
But keep this
Okay.
right into the microphone.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, Holly, you're good.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Flickering flame. Long past twilight's last flickering flame, I recall your soft whispers and echoes refrain. Softly and sweetly they call out my name. Softly and sweetly they sing, like the tune of a light autumn rain. Your essence I feel, your passion I touch. Your words are like music, it hurts like a curse. Deep in the distance of a past life I've known, I desperately cling to your unbridled warmth. Then as if by magic, I'm brought back to earth. Your memory now fades, it cascades out of touch. But just for a moment, I dreamt your soft touch, like a flickering flame at a twilight's last burst. I glanced at your photograph today for a minute or two. You looked so at peace, so comfortable. Happy memories of you. Your eyes had a sparkle, a gleam that I knew. The clock traveled back to remembering you. Happy memories of you. Your smile so alive, captivating too. I swear I heard you calling. Happy memories of you too. Then all of a sudden, I walked out of view. Your memory never fading, always thinking of you. Happy memories of you. Cardinal. A cardinal landed on my lawn today. Pew, 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 I heard him say. His head he turned, his plume he fluffed. He nibbled on a berry bunch. Then off he flew, with wings spanned out. He caught a light breeze, never once looking back. But I can't but marvel of his clever reprieve, how he just a brief moment, he displayed his majestic maneuvers with such confident ease. Thank you, Holly, so much. You know, sometimes, like Holly's last poem, the fact that she wrote about just a moment, a snippet in life, just looking at a cardinal, that sometimes is the most beautiful poem that you can write, because it's a snapshot. It's like photographing with words. So thank you for bringing that to us, Holly. And thank you for reading. The next reader will be Phil Lindsay. Phil Lindsay has been a member of IWN for about 8 years and currently is the treasurer. So I want to know him. He just reimbursed me with a check, so I'm happy. His poems have been in local life, and there is one on the poetry trail also. Phil.
Thank you. Thank you. It's almost baseball season, so it's not that long, Renkai. In fact, it's 2 and they're very, very short. I have about 3 minutes I can sell to anybody that needs them. Anyway, first one's called Shoeless Joe. These are both sonnets, so Shoeless Joe. Jackson's legend was born in Brandon Mill when the town discovered his baseball skill. He thought that the game was all he would need, so he never studied or learned to read. He could run fast, hit hard, defend, and throw. Folks around Greenville all knew Shoeless Joe. One of the best, he played every game hard, but that won't be written on his baseball card. The team owner, frugal, the players said cheap. Gamblers made promises they would not keep. Some players signed on, some claimed they were used. Nevertheless, all 8 men were accused. Banned from baseball, Joe could never come back. His legend, his team, forever stained black. The next one's called Iron Horse. I'm the luckiest man on earth, he said. Just 2 years later, Lou Gehrig was dead. He had played the game for 17 years, more than double the span of most careers. Wally Pipp's headache gave Gehrig his start, and it was 14 years before he'd depart. He won 2 MVPs, 6 series rings, 7 All-Star nods, many other things. In 34, he won the Triple Crown. Before his namesake disease sat him down. 2,130 straight games, enshrined forever in the Hall of Fame. Lou's brave final words moved Babe Ruth to tears. His farewell speech was drowned out by the cheers.
Great intro to the baseball season, Phil. I'm sure there'll be lots more baseball poems. Our next reader is Bill Newby. He's a former IWN moderator who now each March returns with his wife to visit Hilton Head Island, friends, beaches, and golf courses. He considers himself an everyday writer using poetry and fiction to record and explore moments of celebration, complaint, concern, and comedy.
Let's see, how tall are you going to get?
So you can hear me, right? Yeah. Earlier this week, I checked out something. I don't mean to brag, but as of last Monday, I was the 4,217,972nd best-selling author on Amazon. So you can help me. Go to Amazon. So Barb and I, we live in Cleveland, Ohio. Cleveland has one of the world's best museums of art. And this past year, they did a major exhibition on Degas' laundresses. So this is called Like Degas. There's a range for everything. A ballerina's quiet arabesque, pirouette, and grand jeté. The way water fills a cup, even holds still above the rim, till one drop or a jostle slips it down the sides, puddles on the floor. How voters waver between fealty and wisdom, group blindness and open eyes. The day or two between an unripe and past banana, the whole egg or just the white. We walk the neighborhood, enjoying rare days of unexpected warmth, masquerading clouds, the striped purple openings of early crocuses, and memories of scorching Paris strolls. But we need more privacy and time to drop disappointments on the table. Degas' laundresses remain beautiful, even over a fouled river and hot irons. The world in flux between matte and gloss, the daily courtship of dull and sparkle. I feel the urge to cuddle at risk of breaking her sleep. Louder? My coach just told me I have to get louder. Louder? Closer? Well, I'm trying. The hard part here is seeing the text. But I'll work on it. So I have a poem that I like to share. It's a bit long, not too long. It's well within the 5 minutes. But it's about someone that's here tonight. And it's about someone who's not here. In part, it's about Danny, who's sitting at the end of this table over here. And it's also about Bill Dougal, who was a member of the Jammers and used to come and join us and sing, and we used to enjoy his music. This piece is called Denny's Final Gift. It used to be Bill Dougal's favorite, the one he brought most nights, the one he most liked to strum and sing. But its sound box had slowly soured, till he finally said, "That's right. Throw it in the trash if you like. It just won't play anymore." But then he thought, if I replaced the back, I might be able to save it. Then, when he took it to a luthier for its Medicare checkup, the luthier suggested removing the original lacquer and bleeding the back panel, drawing the fouling resin out of the grain. That meant scraping off the external finish, then brushing on and vacuuming off a diluted ammonia solution to extract the damaging desiccant. And then gently wanding a hairdryer back and forth, freeing the wood without cracking it, and letting the box fully rest and recover between each try. But in the end, the bare wood appeared, and the embedded desiccant came through. A full 4 weeks had passed before it was ready to refinish, ready for 30 whispers of lacquer and 1 more of wax. Then the neck and hardware needed adjusting, and all 12 strings needed to be threaded and tuned. Then he thought of holding this cocky Lazarus longer to make sure it was stable. But for the first time in months, Bill Dougal had promised he'd join that night's jam. So Denny brought it to surprise him, and Bill played it one last time. His fingers, his voice, and his favorite guitar reunited for everyone to fully enjoy 2 months before he died. Thanks, folks. It's great seeing everybody, familiar faces. I love it.
I don't know about you, but that reduced me to tears. And I didn't know the person who had this wonderful guitar, but I appreciate so much what you've done for him, what you did for him. All artists need that support. All friends need that support. And so between Denny and Bill, this man had to have been amazing. I appreciate it so much. I appreciate it so much. So now is the time we've all been waiting for. We are fortunate because we have a lot of talented people that are members of the Island Writers Network. Sometimes our featured reader might be somebody from outside the network, but not tonight. Tonight, we're going to be blessed by a reading from Susan Diamond Riley, who is our very own. She is an award-winning author and editor who has worked in the fields of publishing and journalism. Okay. I always feel like I'm going to eat it. So, she has worked in the fields of publishing and journalism and education for nearly 40 years, and you wouldn't know it to look at her. That makes me really distressed and depressed. And has taught and tutored writing at the middle, high school, and college levels. She holds a Master of Arts degree in children's literature from the University of North Carolina, Charlotte, and is a member of the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, the South Carolina Writers Association, and of course the Island Writers Network. Yay. She is the author of the Delta and Jack's Mystery series, including the recently released novel, The Sea Devil's Demise. I don't know, is that really children's literature? As well as the popular Greetings from the Low Country blog, and I do subscribe to the blog, and if you don't, you should. She currently lives on an island in the sea. Gee, I wonder where that is. You can learn more at www.susandiamondriley.com. After her reading, please stop by her table over here, where she will be selling her wonderful children's novels. Everyone, welcome Susan Diamond Riley.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? In answer to Denise's question about is that really children's literature, I'd like to assert my opinion that there is no upper cap on children's literature. I would say my books are appropriate for ages 8 and up. But yes, it's appropriate for the kids too. Thank you for having me tonight and for having me be a part of the Island Writers Network in general. It is a great joy. As Denise mentioned, I write a series of books on the Delta and Jax mystery series based on the main characters who are a brother and sister that are 10 and 12 years old, Delta and Jax. In my first book, The Sea Island Secret, they've come to Hilton Head from their home in Chicago to visit their grandparents who live on Hilton Head. Their grandfather manages the Island History Museum, which is a very thinly veiled coastal discovery museum, which many of you may know as Honeyhorn. And the kids in each book, although the books all take place in the present day, in every book, the kids come upon a mystery they must solve that has to do with a different era in our Low Country's past, because it is such a rich, rich history. And in the first book, they encounter a mystery that takes them to the Civil War. And in the second book, they encounter a mystery that takes them back to the late 1500s when Spanish explorers and Native Americans made this place their home. In the third book, The Sea Witch's Revenge, they come upon a mystery that involves the Revolutionary War period. And in my latest book, The Sea Devil's Demise, which just came out at the beginning of this month, they encounter a mystery that has to do with the early 1700s pirate era in the Low Country. And at the back of each of my books, there is a section called Fact or Fiction that clarifies which parts of the books are just for fun and which parts are actually based on real people and places. So my hope is that you read the book just for fun and you get to the end and realize, hey, I actually learned something real. But one of the things I wanted to talk to you tonight is how this particular book came to be written. I'm going to tell you a little bit about that, and then I'm going to do a reading from it. I had written the first book I wrote, I did when I went back to grad school at age 50 to get my master's degree in children's literature and to force myself to write the novel that I had been meaning to write for so many years. And that worked. I ended up writing The Sea Island Secret and got that book published. In doing so, I lived in Charlotte at the time, but I had to keep coming to Hilton Head to research the history and the real places and things that I mentioned in the books, and fell in love with the place. And so I convinced my husband, Steve, that we had to move here full time. And by the time the book was published, we lived here full time. And now you'd have to drag me out of here kicking and screaming. But with each book, as many of you who are writers know, it's a love-hate relationship as a writer. You have a story you want to tell, but getting it there, it does not come easily. And so with each book, I would finish the first book and be like, phew, glad that's done. And then, lo and behold, another idea would come and I would feel compelled to have to write another one. And I would struggle through that one, and then I was done. And glad I would never have to do that ever again. And then another idea would come. Well, after the third book, I was determined, okay, a trilogy is great, that's going to be fine. I don't need to do that anymore. And to complicate matters, I signed the contract for my third book about a week after my husband was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And so it was hard the manuscript was finished. This was book number 3, not this one. But it was hard to want to move forward with my writing. Having creative juices, they were totally dried up. That was not my priority. And so I thought, okay, well, I've got this book under contract. I'll see it through, but I don't have to write anymore. And then on the way home from a chemo visit at MUSC in Charleston, which became a bi-weekly routine of ours, coming up the Savannah Highway, my husband said to me, we don't know what the future's going to bring. And in fact, we did know what the future was going to bring. We just didn't know how long. But I said, well, what things would you like to do in the time that we have left? what's on your bucket list? And I said, do you want to travel? He said, no, he'd been everywhere he wanted to go. I said, well, are there people you want to see? He said, yeah, we'll see the people. And I said, well, do you have anything on your bucket list? And he said, just one thing. I want to read your 4th book. I had not written a 4th book. I had no ideas for a 4th book. And I said, well, I don't intend to write that one. And he said, well, that's the only thing on my list. I want to read that 4th book. And I said, well, I wouldn't even know what to write about. And he said, I don't know, just write it. All of my books start with the word sea, the sea something. He said, just call it something like The Sea Devil's Demise. And I said, well, crap. Now I'm going to have to write a 4th book because that title is awesome. And I said, well, I don't even know what it would be about. And he said, well, haven't you been doing research? You know, years ago I had done research on a pirate story. And he said, you never wrote the pirate story. Maybe you could work that in. And I said, like maybe have a pirate who calls himself the Sea Devil. And the rest is history. I got to work on this book, got the contract, I finished it, the manuscript. My husband Steve read the chapters as I wrote them. I got it under contract with the publisher I had used for my previous 2 books. And we got it into a final stage. I got the electronic advanced copies. Hadn't seen it in print yet, but we got the electronic advanced copies. He read it cover to cover. We knew what the cover was going to look like. I read the acknowledgments to him. And at the end of December, he passed away. And I came home from Charleston. He passed away in Charleston. I got home from the hospital, and the next day, a case of books arrived on my doorstep. And I took it as a sign. I canceled an event that I had in anticipation of this book's release for the following Saturday. And I had canceled that one. And I told my daughter, Kelly, who is my assistant, I told her, oh, by the way, I canceled Saturday's event at the library. And she said, okay, but don't do it again. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, Dad made me promise him that I would not let you do that. So in the acknowledgments and the dedication of this book, I dedicate the book to my 2 newest grandbabies, because we're always getting more of those around our family, seems like. But tonight's reading is dedicated to Steve, who was my #1 fan, and I have to say I'm still his #1 fan too. But the story of the Sea Devil is what we're really all about tonight. And to give you a little background, Delta and Jax, the brother and sister I mentioned, have a new friend that they meet in book #2 and becomes a major character, their friend Darius. And they have met this girl, strange girl named Annie. She talks funny, she dresses funny. They met her at the Tybee Island Pirate Festival over near Savannah. And then she followed them back to Hilton Head. And she's accused them of taking something of hers. And in getting to know her better, they found out some strange stuff. Delta and Jax have. She's told them that she's from Charlestown, which is what the town of Charleston was called in 1710. And she claims that her father runs a tavern there that is frequented by sailors. And this one old sailor calls himself the Sea Devil, and he claims to have a magic ring. Darius, being the sensible one of the 3, he's not convinced this is true. But Delta is trying to get him to hear out their new friend. So this is what happens. Delta placed her hand gently on her friend's arm. Darius, ever since Jax and I arrived on Hilton Head last summer, unexplainable things have been happening to us. For some reason, we seem to attract weird time magic stuff. You've seen it yourself, so you've got to know that anything is possible when it comes to time. Please, just hear her out. Darius couldn't deny what Delta had said. Between mystical visions of the past and magic time-traveling acorns, the Wells siblings did seem to attract the most mysterious and exciting oddities. He pushed his glasses higher on his nose. I guess if a time-traveling girl was going to land in somebody's lap, it'd be yours and Jax's. He sighed and walked slowly back toward the waiting duo sitting in the sun. So jump ahead to when you came to Savannah, Delta urged Annie. All right. So a couple of mornings later, Jimmy barged into the kitchen at the tavern and told me he'd figured out how to use the ring. But then the sea devil himself come running in all in a panic. Said he'd been bragging too much about his winnings, and now there was pirates after him to steal his prize. He wanted to use the magic right then before they could take it from him. What did you do? Darius asked. Jimmy said we could take his wee boat down the coast to Trench's Island. We could try the magic there. And did you? Jax asked. Jax, you already heard this story, Delta reminded him. I know, but I'm getting into it again. Annie continued. Yeah, we headed down to Trench's. This time of year it's mostly empty on the ocean side, though there's plenty of pirates like to winter on the Skull Creek side where ain't nobody gonna see 'em. Hey, this is Skull Creek right here, Jack said, waving to the intracoastal waterway before them. How's that for a coincidence? Must be a different Skull Creek, Darius said. I've never heard of Trench's Island. Anyway, Annie said, when we started to land there, we noticed a boat following us. It's them pirates what's after me, the old sea devil said. So Jimmy took us on down the coast toward this new town named Yamacraw Bluff. 'Tis what you keeps calling Savannah. Newtown? Darius whispered to Delta, and she nodded. I'd never been that far down the coast before, but Jimmy steered his boat up into the river, and we tried to outrace those scoundrels. They was getting closer, and all the while the sea devil was shouting about not losing his one and only chance to reach a magical land, fiddling with the ring and begging poor Jimmy to go faster. But then we come to a place up the river a ways, and the old man starts clutching his heart and groaning, which scared the wits out of Jimmy and me both. As if you weren't already freaked out enough by a boatload of pirates chasing you, Jack said. 'Tis true. Jimmy pulled the boat up onto the shore, and we seen a tunnel half covered by vines. Me and Jimmy, we dragged the old salt into the mouth of the tunnel to hide him on account of the other boat was still following us. We could hear him shouting at us from a distance, so Jimmy said he'd take his boat farther upriver to throw him off our track. Meanwhile, I's in the tunnel with the sea devil, with him begging me to use the magic so's he might be saved. How are you supposed to use the magic? Darius asked. That's just it. He left the key back at the tavern, and without Jimmy, I couldn't have used the key even if I had it. But I was hearing shouting from the river, and the old man was shoving the ring into my hand, pleading with me. He sort of choked and then goed limp right there in my arms. He died? Darius said softly. Annie nodded, dead as a doornail. But then the strangest thing occurred. Even though 'twas daylight outside, 'twas fairly dark in the mouth of the tunnel, what with the vines covering the entrance. All of a sudden, though, I was nearly blinded by a light so bright, I swear I believed the angels had come to take the old sea devil to heaven. Someone was shining a light on you, Darius said. No, 'twas the ring shining so. Annie stared into the distance, remembering the strange occurrence. It filled the tunnel and then started, swirling. The light itself was like a doorway, swirling in a circle, beckoning me to enter. And you did, Jack said. Enter, I mean. I did. I passed right through it like walking through warm air. I tucked the ring in my pocket and headed deeper into the tunnel to get away from them pirates what was chasing us, even though I didn't hear no shouting from the river no more. Next thing I knows, I come upon a doorway, an actual door this time, and when I opens it, everything's brighter than day. The ring was shining again, Darius asked. No, that was in me pocket, remember? The light was coming from lanterns on the ceiling. I go further on and reach the bottom of some stone steps, and then a feller comes yelling at me to get out of there and go to a party or something. That's when we saw you come up from the rum tunnel at the pirate's house, Delta said, and then turned to Darius. The restaurant in Savannah. We ate lunch there with Tootsie and Pops before the festival. A waiter saw Annie in the stairwell that leads down to the rum tunnel and got after her for being down there. He asked her where her party was seated. You know, like the group that she was with. Darius nodded. So, Annie, how did you get from the restaurant to the festival? Weren't they a few miles from each other? When I come upstairs, I didn't know where I was, so I wandered through the rooms and found the way outside. Somebody asked if I was headed to the shore, and I must have nodded because next thing I know, I'm being shoved onto a carriage with a crowd of other people. When it stopped, we were at that pirate gathering. Folks was dressed like me and talking like me, so I didn't figure out till later that the Sea Devil's magic ring had brought me to another time. So who was the man chasing you at the festival? Had he figured out you didn't belong there? Annie shook her head. 'Twas one of them pirates what was chasing us from Charlestown. Once I seen him, I recognized him from the tavern. He must have followed me through the tunnel. What about your friend Jimmy? Delta asked. Dunno, I've not seen him since he left me and the Sea Devil in that tunnel. A line of pelicans flew low over Skull Creek as the group sat silently in the late morning sunlight, pondering what they'd just heard. So, assuming you're telling the truth, Darius said. I am, I swear it, Annie replied. Okay, Darius said, then how exactly are you planning to get back to 1710? I can answer that, Jack said. We're going to help her. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan, so much. That was just delightful. And thank you for sharing your whole journey to get to this point with your book. Thank you very much. Don't forget to visit Susan on your way out. This concludes our program for tonight. We just want to thank everybody so much for coming. And we want to thank TOs for providing our venue. And, yay. And we want to thank the Jammers for coming. They're just wonderful. And Bill Newby for coming and giving that wonderful poem for Denny. And where did our little Nancy go? Did she leave? Okay, well, and we're thanking Nancy too. And Barry for all of his help in the audio portion of our program. And of course, Raju, who is our videographer. We have some flyers on the table that you should take with you. And please pass them to other people, even if you're not going to come. But these are about the events on April 4th and April 13th, the poetry events. So it would be great if you could take those with you. And we'll look forward to seeing you here next in April with Barry. And then in May we have Miho. And that's going to conclude our open mic for this session. And then we'll start again in the fall. Okay, so everyone have a good evening. Thank you for coming.